You guys, it's Karen and a whole nother background again. Lots of colours going on today. A lot of you said you liked this blue background, and I must admit when I was watching it back I thought it was really pretty, but somebody made a very good point. Excuse me, I've got something in my throat. Somebody made a very good point that it wouldn't be great for like an eyeshadow tutorial, for example, but you guys know that for many reasons I don't actually do many tutorials or get readies with me anymore. I am actually going to do one soon because I've got a big makeup brush set to try and use, and so I'll probably do a first impressions get ready with me using that at some point. Anyway, so I wouldn't do it with this background, but I've now got the choice of 3 directions to sit in, which is great because I can vary it depending on how much time I've got to set the room up, the light, etc. Anyway, you don't care about that. We're here to talk about Luna oil. This is the Sunday Riley Luna Sleeping Night Oil, and you guys know this has been so popular over the last little while, and I don't think it's nothing new. It's not only just appeared. From what I can see, people have been using it for more than a year, perhaps years, and so it's not a new item, but it suddenly seems to have gained momentum and become really popular. And so I got mine, if you remember, in my Sephora haul. I've just got this smaller bottle. This is, I think it's about 30 ml. I'm not sure, it doesn't say in it, or it does and it's too small. Oh no, it's 15 ml. It's actually only 15 ml. That's even worse. This was £48, I think, the equivalent of £48. So it's uber expensive, but I was just desperate to try it. It is a blue oil. It has a very strange smell. This is what it looks like. So I'll put a drop on there so you can see. The smell is, to me, it smells like germaline, but I actually don't mind that. And I say don't mind because I wasn't sure at first. My biggest concern with ordering something that I wasn't able to smell, although I later found out they do it in Space NK, but there you go, was, I'm just showing you so you can see, it doesn't really leave a blue cast or anything, was that, you know, you don't know if you're going to absolutely detest the scent. And I wasn't sure at first. I thought, well, I don't know, this could go either way, you know, I could use it and love it, or use it and go, oh no, I can't stand this smell. But I actually quite like it, but I've been known to like medicinal type smell. Anyway, I asked you guys if you wanted a review of this when I showed it in the haul, and a lot of you said yes, so I thought it was worth adding to the numerous reviews out there. I suppose because my review would be a little bit different. I'm not talking about the benefits on my skin that I have experienced. I mean, I'll talk about that slightly, but I haven't been using it for many months. I haven't seen dramatic differences. I'm talking about the ingredients in it, what I think of it, the research behind the ingredients, going too in depth into that, and just talking about whether I think it's worth the money and what sort of skin I think it can help, that kind of thing. So I had a look at the ingredients, and there are many ingredients in it. There is about 20 ingredients, maybe even more than that, maybe 25. But it's the first 5 that seem to be the kind of key ingredients. There's 2 things in the top 5 that are, I think, they're not unique, but they are unique in the fact that they are in combination in this oil, and I think that's what people are buying the oil for, and that is the Blue Tansy oil, and the HPR, hydroxypynacolone retinoid, which is a retinoid ester. So I think that's the reason that people are buying it. So I thought what I'd do is go through the top 5 ingredients, of which those are 2, and just tell you what research is behind that and a little bit about that ingredient. The first ingredient in this is avocado oil, which is a great oil for skin. It's a great oil to be taken internally. You know, avocados are fantastically beneficial health-wise, but this is listed, avocado oil on the skin is listed as being anti-inflammatory, good for acne and good for eczema. I'm puzzled as to why it's listed as being good for acne, because it's mostly oleic acid, which isn't the best one to use if you've got oily skin. So perhaps if you have dry skin and acne, it may be okay, but I would have a slight concern about that, because I haven't had any breakouts with it. But I know that there are people that have left me comments when I said I wasn't sure what I thought about this Luna oil. There have been people that have said that they have reacted to it and they have had breakouts from acne breakouts, as opposed to reaction breakouts. In terms of research for avocado oil, very little. I'll be saying that word a lot. Very minimal, very little. There was some research in rats that had dry and damaged skin. I have to say the least fun part, not even the least fun part, the most disturbing part about doing the research for you guys on all of these products is that a lot of the research I come across is animal research, and is quite upsetting. But anyway, that's an aside, and I suppose that's good for you guys to know about. It just shows you that even if a product is not tested on animals, so this Riley oil, I don't know if that's cruelty free or not, but if it's not tested on animals and is 100% cruelty free, there will have been studies on the ingredients that involve animals, and it's just terrible. Anyway, so what they showed is that there was some wound healing in rats that had dry and damaged skin from avocado, and there was also a study that showed some effects with vitamin B12 mixed with avocado oil in psoriasis. But no, there's no great big human study. There's no small human study actually. There's no big studies for avocado oil. Number 2 ingredient is grapeseed oil. This is one that is great for oily skin and is linoleic acid, and this is supposed to be good for acne, dark circles. I didn't know that about grapeseed oil. Vitamin C, D and E are in grapeseed oil, so that is a pretty popular oil. I think you'll see that in a lot of you know, mixed oils that you put on your face. And again, the only studies for that, this was the one that I thought, oh, I'm not sure if I can do this anymore. This was showing a study in rabbits where they took some of their skin away and then used grapeseed oil, and it provided wound healing, this oil. Number 3 is chia oil. That's something I've never seen in any product, so I don't know whether that's unique or not, but chia oil has many omega-3s in it and is thought to be anti-inflammatory and helping to repair and reproduce collagen in the skin. The studies on this, there was an actual people study, there was a human study on this, and there was a lot of proof that it worked for itching. So it's great as an anti-itch, so a kind of anti-allergy oil. So that's what I could find out about chia oil. Number 4 and 5 are the most important products, or the most important ingredients, insofar as, like I said, I think that's why people buy this, for the hydroxypinecolone retinoid and the Blue Tansy. Can't believe I forgot that. I've just realised there's actually 6 ingredients I'm talking about, because I'm not talking in depth about the HPR, which is the retinoid ester. So the next 3 ingredients are Blue Tansy oil, HPR, and what's the other one? The Matricaria flower oil, which is a type of chamomile. So I'll briefly mention the HPR, which is number 4. Well, 4 and 5, because it's mixed with dimethyl isosorbide, which is exactly how it was mixed in the Advanced 2% Retinoid by The Ordinary. And in my video on the Advanced 2% Retinoid by Ordinary, I talk about basically that ingredient, because that is the mainstay of that product. And there isn't any research to show that it does anything amazing. There needs to be research. But a lot of people have found it to be a great ingredient. They've seen differences in their skin. So if you want to know more about HPR, I've done a whole video on that, and I'll link that for you in the description. Dimethyl isosorbide is just a skin conditioner, by the way, and they put that with the retinoid ester to prevent or to reduce the amount of peeling, etc., that you get from retinoids. Okay, so we've got Blue Tansy oil left and Matricaria. I'd never heard of Matricaria, but it is chamomile oil, and it's supposed to be great for dry and irritated skin. This was really interesting because there was a lot of research from the point of view of medicine. So there was things about knee arthritis, which of course I was interested in, as it's something I have, and it was also found to work as a sort of anti-cancer product. So there was a lot of research in that area, but absolutely nothing on skincare. I couldn't find anything on skincare about this Matricaria flower. So the one left to talk about is the Blue Tansy oil. From what I can see, this was discovered by May Lindstrom, and when I say discovered, she didn't find the flower, but she found reference to Blue Tansy in a book, and it was something that was taken internally for anxiety and several things, and she thought about using it, and it says she did her own independent research, but there's never any details about that research, so I think that could just be she did it on herself. It doesn't say anything more than she did her own independent research, but she found great results on her troubled skin. I don't know whether she had some kind of eczema or psoriasis, something like that, some type of allergy, inflammation in her skin, and she found it to work wonders. And so I think she brought out that, was it called Blue Cocoon? I'd be quite curious to try that as well, I have to say. That looks very, very interesting. Using this Blue Tansy oil, and she found it amazing. And I think since then it's just kind of become more popular. And again, it's one of those things, I don't think it was just discovered. So I had a look into this Blue Tansy oil, and it's really interesting what it's made up of. You need to make sure, if you want to research into it, you look at Tanacetum annum, not vulgari. There's Tanacetum vulgari and Tanacetum annum, because there is something called tansy, which is something completely different. This one is known as Blue Tansy or Moroccan chamomile oil, it's also known as. But it is thought the chamazuline is the main component of Blue Tansy oil that is thought to have these amazing healing properties. It's thought to be anti-inflammatory. And in fact, there's a sentence that is quoted on many, many blogs. And it's so funny, but something else I've noticed when I'm doing this research is the amount of blogs I read that it is, I guess, plagiarism, because it's like, I'm sure this is the one I just read, but it was on a different site. And people are just taking information and reposting it. And so this sentence came up many times that said it has been shown to be anti-inflammatory in vivo. Yeah, anti-inflammatory in vivo, which means that in humans it's been tested out to be anti-inflammatory. I've no idea what that research is. I can't find that research. I think they may be referring to May Lindstrom saying that she found it to be anti-inflammatory. I don't know. There's no reference to what exactly the study was. And aside from that, I can't find any research at all on this chamazuline for skin. Two important components of this Blue Tansy oil are terpenes and camphor. And again, these are thought to be responsible for some of the actions of it, some of the magical actions of this oil. Terpenes are most research for their for the terpenes that are in cannabis, basically. And there's a lot of research going on in cannabis. There was a lot of research going on in cannabis when I worked in the hospital in medical research. We had many research projects on, I'm sure it was called Sativex, which is the tablet form of cannabis. Maybe I've got the wrong name. Anyway, I do remember there was a lot of research going on for its anti-cancer properties. And this is the terpenes that are in cannabis. Things like citronellol and linalool and citronellol, they are terpenes, and they're something you often find in skincare. And they can be irritants. Certainly I have had allergies to linalool in the past. I don't seem to be so allergic now, which is actually completely going against what science would tell you, but that you should become more sensitized to things. But they are irritants, they're not great products, but terpenes is just a big umbrella for a group of products or compounds. But I can't find anything about the effects on skin at all. And the other thing that I found, the other product is the camphor. And there's a lot of studies on that as a pain reliever, which makes sense because if you have a look at some of these deep heat products or products that you inhale or, you know, for colds to unblock your nose, it's a warming type of product, and it can be found in a lot of those type of products that you rub on for pain relief. What else was it? It talked about this camphor. Oh, that it's not to be used on broken skin. I think that's really important to note, because the way that people are talking about this Blue Tansy oil or this sleeping oil is that it would work on things like eczema and psoriasis. But I think you need to be wary if you've got broken skin because of this component. And there is a concern that it is a endocrine disruptor hormone. I talked about that in the, I can't remember what I even called the video. It was something about avoiding cancer by the chemicals that we use, you know, everything that we're using every day. And there's a lot of hormones that are considered to be hormone disruptors, and this is one of them. Camphor is something that is suspected. There's no research for that either, but it's something that people worry about, that it affects hormones. So you definitely don't want to put it on broken skin. It's also used in insect bites and cold sores, which is interesting because, again, cold sore is an open wounds. So there's really mixed research on camphor. So that's the individual components of Blue Tansy oil, and there is no research just on Blue Tansy oil. From what I can see, like I said, the only person that's done any research is May Lindstrom, and it's not published research or even documented research. That's the top 6 ingredients. So that's all the research I'm going to talk about. I will give you my conclusion at the end and what I've thought about it on my skin. But what else is in here? After those ingredients, there are a couple of other chamomile oils, different types of chamomile oils. And then there is 4 irritating essential oils. Essential oils that are, or can be, I should say, irritating to the skin, and that I believe are irritating to the skin. There is Lang Lang, Blood Orange, Neroli, and Vetiver oil. So if you've got very sensitive skin, and you'll know which kind of products you're allergic to, you may know, but this is something to be wary of. You could well be sensitive to these products. When I talk about, I have got it on my list to do a video on essential oils. Are they bad for your skin? Because I think a lot of people believe that if it's a so-called natural oil that your skin will be fine, and other people believe that if you can't feel any irritation, then there is no irritation, and those two things aren't necessarily true. So I do have it on my list, but just something to be aware of if you've got sensitive skin. Sunflower seed oil, that's a fairly, well, it's a very inexpensive oil that's used as a filler in a lot of products, but there's not an awful lot of that. It's very low down on the list. And the fragrances, to be fair, they're not in the top 6 ingredients. They are lower. They're not hugely high. However, there is 4 of them, so I don't know how much they make up of it. And then there is rosemary leaf extract, which is also an irritating fragrance. And then the final thing to talk about is they have green and violet dye in this. And I have no idea why they have dye in it, because Blue Tansy oil is blue. And interestingly, if you look it up on Google, the first thing that comes up is a big Facebook page dedicated to the fraud of Blue Tansy oil, where people are trying to sell Tanacetum vulgare, which is tansy oil, as Blue Tansy oil by adding blue to it. But it has some toxic substances in it, so be very careful where you're buying this from if you don't want to buy the sleeping oil, because it can be made to look like it, and it's got, I think it's got thujone in it, which is, yeah, not a good product. Not something you want to be putting on your skin. Anyway, Blue Tansy is blue, so I've no idea where they've put these dyes in. I've heard a few other people saying that. I'm sure Stephanie Nicole said the same thing. Why have they put this dye in it? It doesn't seem to make sense. Maybe to make it bluer. Maybe it wasn't blue enough. I don't know. I'm sure there'll be people now going, you haven't even talked about how it is on your skin. I want to know if it's done anything for your skin. There's many videos out there talking about people's opinion and what they found it to work for, and how they feel the oil, what it's done for their skin, etc. I do like to do videos that sort of drill down a bit more into what are the actual ingredients and what's the actual research. And at the end of the day, that might not matter to a lot of people, but I know there are a lot like myself that do want to know these things. Whether or not that affects whether I buy it or not is a whole other thing. Somebody had left a comment saying, it was really interesting, an interesting point, that she said that there's not a lot of research in skincare because there's not enough women in the industry. That's a really interesting point of view. I believe there's not enough research because there's no financial reason to do so. There's not enough regulation. So, you know, I know that working in medical research, the studies that we had, the funding was just phenomenal. The funding was there because once a drug was developed, it would make the money back times 100. You know, there was the potential to make millions and millions and billions of pounds, whereas I don't think there's not the same potential, and there's not the same regulation in skincare. You don't have to have proved the research behind something before you use it, whereas with the drug you have to have a certain amount of studies and you have to have a certain amount of evidence before you can start selling a drug and licensing a drug, etc. It's not the same with skincare, so there's not really any reason for people to do research. I don't feel like, although I know there is a lot of you watching this that are very interested, of course, that's perhaps why you watch my videos, as opposed to somebody just saying this, it felt lovely. But I don't feel like if it said, here's a link to the evidence-based research, I don't know that it would sell better. I don't know that a product would sell better. People believe what they hear, and they will read a blog saying, you know, this this has been proven to be an anti-inflammatory, and they will then repeat that. It's an anti-inflammatory, it's been proven, but never wondering, how's it been proven? Who proved it? Is it really proven? You know, anyway, I'm going to stop rambling now because I'm rambling a bit, but there's a lot of people like me who want to know the why. I'm always like, but why? And who? And how? Okay, let me tell you what I thought of it. When I first started using it, I thought this could not be better timing because, do you remember I've had that little patch? You're probably sick of hearing about this little patch on my skin, but it was really awful. It started off as just a patch of dry skin. It then developed into what looked like a patch of eczema. Now, I have had eczema in the past. I've actually had it around my hairline. I used to get it when I was stressed. I'd get it just all along my hairline. And so I thought it looked like it was a little patch of eczema and dry skin. And so it started to get worse. It then became a breakout, just an acne breakout with 2 little spots in it. And I just thought, this thing is just getting worse. The spots had gone, but it was still very red and angry. And I got this oil and I thought, this is perfect, because I've read Caroline Hyron's talking about the oil and how she had a boil on her skin, some kind of reaction boil. And she used it, and in 2 days it had gone. Now, obviously, we don't know if it was the oil or if that was just the passage of time. And I thought, we won't know if that's the case with this, but let's give it a go and see what happens. So I've used it for probably a week and a half, 2 weeks, something like that, but not every single night. Maybe every other night, maybe every third night if you average it out, because I've got another oil that I was trying, and I used it probably when I first got it, I used it about 4 nights in a row to see what it would do. And it made no difference to this patch of whatever it was at all. I stopped using the Lunar oil for 2 days and started using everything that was moisturising. So I used a different day SPF. I used the vitamin C oil before my SPF. I'll talk about all that in the dry skin routine I'm going to do for the Ordinary products. And then I used my water charged gel from MAC over the top of another oil. Different oils I used actually. And then it started to heal, and it's now all but gone. There's nothing there, you can't really see it. But it certainly didn't work for as a wound healer for me, as an anti-itch, because this was really itchy and it didn't stop it itching. So yeah, it didn't have any benefits insofar as healing anything. I didn't have any irritation from it though at all. It feels beautiful going on. It's kind of the perfect balanced oil for me, in that it doesn't feel like a dry oil going on. I don't like the feeling of dry oils. For example, the Squalane from the Ordinary, I feel like it's too dry. I just don't like the feeling of it. But the Marula oil from the Ordinary feels too thick and just thick and cloyed. Do you know what I mean by that? Very greasy, and I don't like that. But this is like the perfect balance in that it's fairly thin. Well, it is thin. You saw it running down my hand. It's thin, but it feels really, your skin feels immediately very, very soft. So it's very moisturising, and it feels very lovely on the skin. It feels like you don't need to put a moisturiser on top. You know, it feels like that would be all you would need. It's a lovely feeling. Really enjoyed it. It's not greasy at all. So that's how I found it, but I haven't noticed anything different about my skin at all. But like I said, I haven't tested this in a controlled manner. I've just been using it to get a first impression of it. What is my conclusion on this? The kind of summary is that there's minimal research, but the research that there is, or the feeling that's out there, the theory if you like, is that it is good for wound healing, allergies, eczema, any kind of skin inflammation, that it's not necessarily an anti-aging product. It certainly doesn't seem to be even talked about as an anti-aging product. It's more a wound healer, and for any real problem skin. I would say that it's not good for sensitive skin because of those irritating fragrances in it. I would be cautious if you have oily skin because of the oleic in it, the oleic acid that's in the avocado oil, but it's mixed with many other oils, so it should be fine. And like I said, it didn't break me out at all, so I don't think that's a big issue. I personally don't think it's worth the money. I think that it is a ridiculously expensive price, and I think Blue Tansy oil is a very expensive ingredient, but there will also be a very big markup on that price. And I just think that it's a ludicrous price for the amount you get. What have I even done with my bottle? There it is. So this is 15 ml, like I said, this is about £48. I don't know whether it's the same price as here in the UK, because sometimes things are less expensive in the US. I've just had a look and you can buy this on Cult Beauty, 30ml, which is twice this amount. This to me doesn't seem like 15ml, you know. What I think it is that the glass bottle is bigger than the, you know, I think there's an inner part that is sort of raised from the bottom and away from the edges, because 15ml isn't very much at all, and this looks a lot more than 15ml. I would have said this was 30ml. But anyway, there's a 30ml bottle from Cult Beauty, but it's £85, and no, I don't think it's worth it. I think if it was something that had any kind of research behind it, and didn't have the irritating fragrances in it and didn't have the dye, then perhaps it would be worth the money. However, if you have used it and it's doing wonders for your skin, then yes, it's worth the money. You know, this is the thing. Things are worth whatever you're willing to pay for them, and it's just a shame you can't get a sample of that, because like I said, some people have had miraculous outcomes from using that. I wonder how much of that is the sort of placebo effect that I've talked about before. Like one blog I read, she used it and she thought it felt wonderful, and she had a spring in her step because she loved the smell, and people were saying how lovely her skin was. But I wonder if that was just because she was smiling more, she loved the smell, it was uplifting. You know, I wonder how much of that was the actual oil, because again, I don't think you can see results on somebody's skin in a couple of days. I think products take a lot longer than that to show any massive results. But if you have used it and enjoy it, then of course it's worth it to you. This is a product that I would love to find a dupe of, but it's not that simple. There is no dupe that I can see, but if you want an alternative, the alternative would be to get something like the Jurlique oil. The Jurlique facial oil has in it matricaria oil, which is in that top 6 I mentioned, avocado oil and grapeseed oil. It does not have the Blue Tansy oil in it. You could combine that with the advanced 2% retinoid from The Ordinary. That would give you everything except the Blue Tansy oil. You can buy Blue Tansy essential oil from eBay. They've listed it as, the one that I just looked at, they've listed it as Tansy Blue Essential Oil. Which would make me anxious in itself, but the fact is they've put it as Tanacetum annum, which is the name you're looking for. But remember I talked about that Facebook page where they were talking about the fraudulent oils. That could be Tanacetum vulgare with blue dye in it, which would not be a good thing to put on your skin. So I would not risk buying the Blue Tansy oil from eBay. If anybody's bought it and tried it, let us know what you think of it. I'm tempted to just order a bottle just to see if it has any of the same sort of strong scent, but then there's so many essential oils in this Sunday Riley Luna oil that I don't know how much of that is that and how much is natural products, you know. So yeah, the closest dupe, if you like, would be the Jurlique facial oil, which is I think about 34, 35 pounds, something like that, and the Ordinary retinoid, advanced 2% retinoid, and that will give you 2 good sized bottles. The only thing I would say is that you don't need to use much of this. You do only need a couple of drops, and you guys know me, I use a lot. Every time I do any kind of demo on screen, people are like, wow, you use a lot of product. I use a lot of hair products, makeup, skincare, everything. I use a lot, but not with this. You only need a little bit, and it will last a while. I think it'll be interesting to see how long this lasts me. It's not actually gone down that much, considering it's down to about there, and like I said, I can't count how many nights I've used it, but I've used it a fair amount. Okay, so that is everything on the Luna oil. I hope that was informative for you and useful. Let us know. I would be really interested to know how many of you are using this and how many of you have found it amazing. And tell me again if you've had problems with it, because I feel like there's a lot of products out there that everybody thinks are amazing and everybody says it's wonderful, and people are almost scared to say that they don't like it. I've even heard YouTubers saying, you know, I'm really nervous. I've said it myself, I'm really nervous to say I don't like this because everybody loves it, and people are just like, oh, you're using it wrong, or, you know, people like to love something, but I feel like sometimes one person says, you know what, I don't like this, everybody's raving about it and I don't like that, and then all of a sudden, certainly when I've done it, when I've said, you know what, this is just not for me, people have gone, oh, I didn't like it either, and it did this and it did this. So I think that's really interesting and really useful for everybody that's potentially thinking about buying the oil, and I think that's why it was good for me to do this video, because it's, whether you find it useful or not, it's extra information, and when you're spending that kind of money, well, the more information you can get, the better. So yeah, I hope you found it useful. I will give you a quick rundown of what's on my face. I've got on my Lancome Teint Ultra Foundation in 010. I've got on my Viseart eye palette in Nuance, and on my lips it's a NYX lip, I don't know whether it's called Lip Suede, but it's in Push Up. I'm pretty sure it's in Push Up. I'll list it in the description anyway, as I usually do. This top is just the most amazing colour. This is my favourite colour, I think, in the whole world. That sort of cherry red. And actually, I had intended when I wore this t-shirt to, I just bought this from H&M. I had intended to wear a lipstick of this kind of colour. I thought, wouldn't that look lovely? You know, minimal eye makeup, a lip colour matching this. And of course I do my makeup before I decide what I'm wearing, and I wanted to wear this, so I thought, oh well, never mind, next time. That's everything. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in my next